We have a shocking Bills update that could change everything. Just days into training camp, the Bills are already dealing with a setback. An injury to one of their top rookies has quickly become one of the biggest storylines out of camp. He was drafted to help anchor the secondary, and early signs pointed to his huge potential. Now, his status is up in the air, and it's first-round pick Maxwell Harrison at the center of the news. My name is Maeve Miller, and I'm part of the Bills Digest team, so please subscribe to our Bills Digest YouTube channel for all the latest updates during training camp, preseason, and of course the season. Getting right into it, I want to talk about our first rounder who took a big hit. Obviously this is cornerback Maxwell Harrison, and this guy had great high expectations going in. Fans are very excited. Beane was excited. McDermott was excited. And, he just has a lot of great skills that the Bills are looking for. He's got high IQ. He's versatile. The two things that I feel like McDermott loves about his defense is those main traits. He's got great instincts, quick feet, very, very fast. And I think also notable about him is his personality. He kind of went viral during the NFL draft because he was standing up, cheering, clapping every time one of those guys got drafted, whether it was a friend, an acquaintance, whatever. He was hugging him, just giving such good energy, and that's just, I think, the kind of person that the Bills want is on the team. In interviews, he's just presented so well, talking about how he loves the Bills, mindset of everybody eats. He seems extremely unselfish and just like a very happy, positive guy. And that's just obviously something you want on your team. You don't want any locker room issues. So I was very excited about Harrison joining the team, but obviously we have to talk about his setback. This was reported on by lots of different sources, but this says how he went down with a knee injury, and at the time it was kind of unconfirmed what it was. It was like a lower body injury, and the severity was not known at the time. But, there's a lot of fake news going around. This was a tweet that confirmed that he had an ACL tear, and fans just went crazy because obviously that's a huge deal. You're out for at least a season, and Harrison tweeted back at this and was like, that's not true. So all in all, it was confirmed that it was an LCL injury. ACL was intact, so this was not correct, but that he will be out around 3 weeks. And this does bring up the question of, does that seem like it's too early for him to get brought back? You don't want to, get a guy on too early and risk injuring it even further. So I think fans were I saw a couple people in the comment sections of tweets being like, let's just wait. Just give it a couple weeks. Obviously, you want him to be back for preseason and all that, but what's the rush, kind of, if you don't want it to impact further down the line? So, it's obviously very good news. Harrison was one of my most exciting draft picks. Obviously, he's a first rounder, so, expectations are the highest for him. But, like I said, his personality, his skills, and the fact that the Bills want him to be a starter, I feel like, is all a huge deal. Which kind of brings my second point, which is the impacts of this injury. As I said, it's not a huge injury, but there still is concerns about that. If things were to, go negatively, there are some lasting impacts about, who might take his spot because, like I said, they do want him to be a starter. But looking at the depth chart for the defense, we can see left quarterback maybe Christian Benford, my guy, love him, listed at 1, with Dane Jackson at the second spot, who the Bills traded but then brought back, and I'll just say it, I just feel like he's okay. I don't know, he wasn't the most reliable guy out there. I did like him a little more than Elam, but it still wasn't great, and I know that might be a little harsh, but I just feel kind of about him. But I think he's a decent backup. And then the third string is Dorian Strong, who the Bills used for their 6th-rounder, the 2025 draft. Obviously, we don't know much about him because we've only seen him in college, but I feel like getting those reps in training camp will be very important. And then for the right quarterback, we have Harrison obviously listed as first, with questionable next to his name. And then we have Tre'Davious White. And, I feel like the Bills' secondary has gone through a lot of changes since White was originally on the team. They lost White, Jordan Poyer, Micah Hyde. Obviously, they brought Micah Hyde back, but not really. And those 3 guys were just the foundation of the Bills' defense. I feel like the secondary was so strong back when they were there. But Trey White was brought back, which I'm very happy about. I think he's a great guy, good player, but he's obviously not in his prime anymore. The guy went through a lot. ACL injury, came back, recovered great, and then to get hit by an Achilles injury right after that was just tough. So I feel like a lot of people are talking about either Trey or Harrison being the starter, but obviously that's in the depth chart and, what the Bills fans and, team members are hoping that Harrison will start. If not, I feel like he'll be more a rotational player, but we'll still get a lot of snaps. And then third string, we have Jamarcus Ingram, who, is a little bit so inexperienced, but hopefully he won't get used. No offense. Hoping that it stays between Harrison or White. And then on the left cornerback, Benford, Jackson. And, if Strong, we'll see what happens in training camp, preseason. As a sixth rounder, you don't really know. You don't expect him to start. But Benford was drafted way later and ended up playing over Elam, who was drafted in the first round. So you never know what happens. And I like that about the Bills, where it doesn't really matter, what you were drafted, how you're brought in. It just matters how you play. And then there's also talk about Taron Johnson maybe shifting responsibilities in case Harrison is out a little longer. But I think he does play very, very well in that slot. So I feel like him at the nickelback position is probably the best chance. But as I was talking about high expectations, Madden came out with their top 10 rookies. We got big names. Travis Hunter's at the first spot. And it's very exciting to see that Harrison is listed at the 10th. And that's why I feel like hopes are very high for him. And that's always the hope that kills for Bills fans, is that getting too excited about something. And then he inevitably gets hurt. So, but as I said, it is good news. So I'm trying to be positive about it. But it is still a little bit scary because that was supposed to be our top draft pick. But even the defensive coordinator, Bobby Babich, he was talking about what the plan is for training camp, and he said we have walkthroughs, we have things that he can do during practice and those types of things when he's available to do those things. But it's hard to simulate game speed. You can't simulate the physicality of the NFL, so it's certainly going to be an adjustment period. But we'll have a plan. It'll be well thought out, and we'll be rocking and rolling. So he clearly seems positive, so I'll be positive too if defensive coordinator is. And, I'm glad he's still attending training camp. And he's right, there is not much you can do. And there always is a hard transition from college to the NFL, and especially without that crucial training camp time. I think that's the biggest concern, is that, okay, it's not a long-term injury, which is great, but there is just a lot of developmental time that Harrison is missing, especially with the other teammates. But like I just said, it's overall very positive, so I'm trying, glass half full mindset. But I feel like it has been hard. There's been a lot of training camp injuries, and the Bills have been listed as some of the most. This was a tweet that says teams with the longest injuries to starters on depth, offense and defense. These include season ending, IR, PUP, suspensions, which obviously the Bills have some. The 49ers are first at 16, with the Bills coming second at 14, which is a lot. And it is definitely concerning. I feel like, I know all teams have injuries, but the Bills just feel like they get especially hit by that, especially on the defense. But some of those injuries do include Tyrell Shavers. He was carted off with a lower leg injury, and I feel like that was maybe the most concerning one. Obviously, he's not a starter, even second string, third string, but it is still a major injury. McDermott said the ankle was not that serious, though. Curtis Samuel had a hamstring injury, so we're hoping that he gets more reps at wide receiver, which that was definitely a little more concerning. And then Elijah Moore, another backup wide receiver, and Caden Prather all set out with soreness, and Chenault was back on, which is good. Tight end-wise, Kincaid and Dawson Knox were both on the non-practice report, which is concerning because they're our two starting tight ends, and they're great players. Big parts of the offense. But I feel like a lot of these injuries don't seem like they're going to be down the line, maybe just training camp, or just try not to push it because you don't want to risk it before preseason and before even the season. In another video, I also mentioned Tyler Bass. He had some soreness, hamstring maybe, but he also was just missing a lot of kicks. He was 4 for 8 as of a couple of days ago during training camp. So not sure if it's the injury causing that or if he's not playing well and that maybe something's wrong because, 50% on field goals is not great in training camp. But we're hoping that all these injuries are just, for the time being, and they're just training camp and maybe players being a little more cautious because it's not, the actual season. Obviously, we'll keep updated on players like Harrison, Shavers, Bass, and we're hoping that it's all good news in the future. But once again, please subscribe to the Bills Digest YouTube channel. Thanks for watching, and go Bills.